My grandson looked straight at his friends, laughed, and said, "Yeah, I basically support my grandma now." I didn't react. Not right away. I just sat there at the end of the table, hands folded in my lap, like I didn't hear it. But I did. Every word. The room went quiet for half a second. Then someone chuckled like it was a joke. Tyler didn't correct them. He just leaned back in his chair, proud of himself like he just said something impressive. I watched him. 22 years old. Fresh haircut. Expensive sneakers I knew he didn't actually pay for. Talking like he was the one keeping me afloat. I took a sip of my iced tea. Didn't say a word. That was their first mistake. Rebecca smiled like she was proud. "He's been taking on a lot of responsibility lately," she added, almost casually, like this was some kind of achievement. I turned my head slightly, just enough to look at her. She didn't look away. She believed it too. That's when I realized something cold and quiet. This wasn't a joke to them. This was the story now. Tyler kept going. "Rent's crazy these days," he said, shaking his head. "Gotta make sure everything's covered." Covered. I almost smiled at that. Almost. Instead, I stayed still. Let him talk. Let them all nod along like this was normal. Like I was some kind of burden he was carrying. I noticed his friends watching me, trying to figure out if I was embarrassed. I didn't give them anything. No reaction. No correction. Just silence. Inside though, something shifted. Not anger. Not yet. Something sharper. Clearer. I looked around the table. The decorations. The birthday cake. The people I'd cooked for, helped, supported. And now I was the one living off him. Tyler raised his glass. "To hard work," he said with a grin. "Everything I've got, I earned." That one landed. I felt it. But I still didn't speak. I just nodded slightly like I agreed. Big mistake. Because what he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that every single thing he was so proud of wasn't his. And I let him keep talking. Let him build that story higher and higher. Because the higher it gets, the harder it falls. I kept my smile just long enough to get through the rest of dinner, nodding. When people talked, pretending like nothing had shifted, but inside my head I was already somewhere else, somewhere quieter, somewhere that finally made sense of everything I had been ignoring for years, because this did not start tonight, it just became impossible to ignore tonight. And as Tyler kept laughing and talking about how hard he worked, I started replaying every moment that led here, every check I wrote, every sacrifice I made that no one at that table seemed to remember, or maybe they never even knew in the first place, which somehow made it worse because this version of the story, the one where he carried me, did not come from nowhere. It grew slowly, quietly over time, and I allowed it to happen by staying silent for too long. I remember the first tuition bill like it was yesterday, sitting at my kitchen table with my reading glasses on, staring at the number at the bottom of the page, more than I had ever spent on anything for myself, and still I did not hesitate. I wrote the check, folded it neatly, and mailed it the next morning without telling anyone, not even Tyler, because I did not do it for credit. I did it because he had a future and I wanted to make sure nothing stood in his way. And then there were the semesters after that, each one heavier than the last, books, housing, meal plans, all of it quietly handled. I told myself it was temporary, just until he got on his feet, just until he could take over, but that moment never came. Instead, the requests changed shape, smaller things at first, then bigger ones, always framed like help, never like dependence, and somewhere along the way the truth flipped, not in reality but in their minds, and now here we were, sitting at a decorated table celebrating his birthday while he told people he was the one supporting me. I glanced over at Rebecca again as she laughed at something one of his friends said, completely comfortable, completely certain of the story they were telling. And that was when it hit me, not anger, not sadness, just clarity. They were not being cruel on purpose. They actually believed this version of events. They had rewritten the past so many times that it felt real to them, and I had helped them do it by never correcting it, by never once saying, "No, that is not how it happened." I looked back at Tyler as he scrolled through his phone, probably checking messages, maybe posting something about the night, something about hard work and independence, and I felt something settle in my chest, something firm, something final, because if they truly believed I lived off him, then there was only one way to show them the truth, not with arguments, not with explanations, but with reality. And for the first time that night, I stopped seeing my grandson as the boy I had raised and started seeing him as a man who needed to learn exactly what it meant to stand on his own, and I knew exactly where to begin. The next morning I woke up before sunrise like I always did, but everything felt different, sharper somehow, like the fog had finally cleared and I could see things exactly as they were, not as I had been pretending they were for years. I made my coffee black, no sugar, and sat at the same kitchen table where I had signed every one of those tuition checks, and for the first time I did not feel proud or sentimental about it. I felt precise, focused, like I was finally about to finish. Something I should have handled a long time ago. I reached for my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I needed, the financial office at Tyler's university. I had it saved under his name, not mine, which made me pause for just a second. Then I pressed call. The line rang twice before a woman answered, her voice polite, professional. I gave my name, full name, slow and clear, and then I gave his, explained my relationship, explained that I had been handling all tuition payments directly for the past 4 years. There was a pause on the other end, the kind where someone is pulling up records, verifying details, and then she confirmed it, every payment, every semester, all under my account, exactly as I knew it would be. I asked one simple question, calm and steady, what happens if the next payment is not made on time? She explained it without emotion, late fees, registration hold, possible removal from classes if it goes too far. I thanked her, told her that would not be necessary for now, and ended the call. I sat there for a moment, phone still in my hand, and let that sink in, not as a threat, not as revenge, just as reality. Then I made one more call, this time to my bank. I asked them to stop all automatic transfers connected to Tyler's expenses, tuition, housing, everything. The man on the line asked if I was sure. I said yes, no hesitation this time, because this was not about taking something away, it was about giving something back, responsibility, the kind he claimed to already have. I stood up, walked over to the window, and looked out at the quiet street, neighbors starting their day. Nothing unusual, nothing dramatic, just another morning, except it was not for him, because somewhere across town Tyler was waking up thinking his life was exactly the way he described it last night, stable, controlled, self-made, and he had no idea that the foundation under all of that had just been removed. I did not feel guilty, I did not feel angry, I felt calm because I was not doing anything unfair. I was simply stepping out of a role I had been playing for too long, one he did not even recognize, and for the first time in years I was not fixing things for him before he even noticed they were broken. I was letting him see it, feel it, understand it. I picked up my coffee again, now slightly cold, and took a slow sip. Then I said it out loud, not to anyone, just to myself, let him support himself now, and I meant every word. It did not take long. By mid-afternoon my phone rang, and I already knew who it was before I even looked at the screen. I let it ring once, twice, then answered calmly. Tyler did not even say hello. Did you mess with my tuition? His voice was sharp, rushed, like he had just run into a wall he did not understand. I did not respond right away. I let the silence sit there, just like I had at dinner. I got an email. He continued, louder now. There is a hold on my account. They are saying payment is missing. That makes no sense. I leaned back in my chair, looking out the window again. Same. Harder. Making it harder. I repeated that silently, then I spoke, quieter than before but sharper. I have been making it easier for 4 years. That stopped her completely. No immediate response this time, just silence, real silence, the kind that forces someone to actually think. What does that mean? She asked finally, and now there was something else in her voice, something uncertain, something she could not quite place yet. I took a slow breath, not because I needed it, but because I wanted every word to land exactly where it should. It means every tuition bill, every payment, every semester. That was me. I said, steady, clear, no emotion added, just truth, and for a second I thought the call had dropped because she said nothing, absolutely nothing, and that was when I knew not only did they not appreciate it, they truly never even knew. The silence on the other end did not stay quiet for long. It cracked, sharp and sudden. That is not possible, Rebecca said, but her voice had already changed, lower now, uncertain in a way I had never heard before. Like the ground under her was starting to move and she could feel it. Tyler has loans, he told me he was handling it. I did not rush to correct her. I let her sit in that confusion, because this was the first time she was actually questioning the story. He does have loans. I said calmly. But not for what you think. Another pause, shorter this time, followed by something that sounded like her pacing. I could almost picture it, her hand pressed against her forehead, trying to piece together something that no longer made sense. Then what exactly have you been paying? She asked, and now the edge was gone, replaced with something closer to disbelief. I walked back to the table and sat down slowly, steady, in control. Everything that kept him in school, I said. Tuition, fees, part of his housing every semester. I could hear her breathing now, uneven, like she was trying to stay composed but failing. Why would you not tell us that? She asked, and there it was, the question that always comes too late. I did not raise my voice, I did not accuse, I just answered. Because I was not doing it for recognition, I said. I was doing it so he would not have to struggle. And for a second there was nothing, no defense, no excuse, just the weight of that answer sitting between us. Then her tone shifted again, not soft, not apologetic, but defensive, trying to regain control. Well, that still does not explain why you would stop now, especially over something he said at a dinner. You are taking this too far. I almost smiled at that, too far. After 4 years of silence, after everything I had covered without a word, now I was the one. Going too far? No, I said quietly. I am finally doing exactly what he said he is already doing. That landed harder than anything else. I could hear it in the way she did not respond right away, like she was searching for a way to argue but could not find one that fit anymore. He cannot just fix this overnight, she said again, but weaker now, repeating herself because she had nothing new to hold on to. Then he will learn, I replied, simple, steady, final, and that was when her voice dropped completely, almost a whisper now. You are serious? Not a question, more like a realization, and I did not hesitate. I have never been more serious, I said, and for the first time in this entire conversation she did not push back, she did not argue, she did not try to reshape the situation, she just went quiet. And in that silence I knew something had finally broken, not in anger, not in chaos, but in clarity. The version of the story they had been living in was gone, and there was no way to put it back together the same way again. That evening they showed up at my door without calling, which did not surprise me, not anymore. I heard the knock, firm and impatient, and I already knew it was not going to be a conversation, it was going to be a confrontation. I opened the door slowly, and there they were, Tyler standing slightly behind Rebecca, but not hiding, just unsure, his confidence from the night before nowhere to be found, his shoulders tighter, his eyes searching my face for something he could not quite name. Rebecca stepped forward first, of course she did. We need to talk, she said, and I simply nodded and stepped aside, letting them in without a word. Looked not like a grandson expecting help, but like someone finally trying to understand the person in front of him. Are you really not going to help at all? He asked, and there it was, the real question, stripped of pride, stripped of performance, just honest. I held his gaze, calm, steady, and answered without hesitation. I already did. And this time, neither of them had anything left to say. Tyler did not argue after that, not right away, and that was new because he always had something to say, some quick response, some way to shift things back in his favor. But now he just stood there, quiet, thinking, and I could see it happening in real time, the way his expression changed, the way his shoulders dropped just slightly, like the weight of everything was finally settling in. Rebecca, on the other hand, was not ready to let it go. So that is it? She said, her voice tight, controlled but slipping at the edges. You just walk away after all this time and leave him to figure it out alone? I turned my head toward her slowly, not reacting to the accusation, just meeting it. He is not alone, I said calmly. He has exactly what he claimed to have. She let out a frustrated breath, pacing a step across the room, trying to find something that would shift this back into something she could control. You are being cold, she said, and that word hung there like it was supposed to shame me into changing my mind, but it did not, because for the first time, I was not reacting emotionally. I was responding clearly. No, I said, steady. I am being honest. Tyler finally spoke again, quieter now but more focused. How much was it? He asked, and that question changed everything because it was no longer about blame or defense, it was about understanding. I looked at him for a moment, then answered, enough that you never had to worry, I said, not giving him a number yet, letting him sit with the weight of that first. He nodded slowly, like he expected that, but still did not fully grasp it. No, he said after a second, almost to himself, I mean all of it. And I could hear it now, the shift. He needed to know, not to argue, not to dismiss, but to understand what had really been done for him. I stood up and walked over to the small desk by the wall, opened the drawer, and pulled out a thin folder, nothing dramatic, just paper, organized, quiet. I walked back and handed it to him without a word. He took it carefully, like it weighed more than it should, and opened it. Inside were copies, tuition statements, payment confirmations, dates, amounts, every semester laid out clearly. No exaggeration, no emotion, just facts. I watched his eyes move across the pages, slower and slower as it started to sink in, the numbers, the consistency, the reality of it. Rebecca stepped closer, looking over his shoulder, and I saw her face change too, not defensive anymore, not confident, just stunned. Tyler flipped another page, then another, then stopped, his hand still on the paper but not moving. This is all of it? He asked, his voice lower than I had ever heard it. I nodded once. Every semester, I said, and the room went quiet again, but this time it was different, not tense, not uncertain, just heavy with truth. Tyler closed the folder slowly, not looking at me yet, just holding it like he was trying to process something much bigger than a missed payment, something about himself, about what he believed, about what he had said, and finally he looked up, and for the first time there was no pride, no performance, just clarity, and he did not try to explain, he did not try to defend it, he just stood there, understanding exactly what had changed. Tyler did not speak for a long time after that, and I did not rush him, I did not fill the silence, I just stood there and let him sit with it, because this was the part that mattered, not the argument, not the confrontation, but the understanding, the kind that does not come from being told, but from seeing it clearly for yourself. He looked down at the folder again, then back at me, and when he finally spoke, his voice was different, quieter, stripped of everything it used to carry. I did not know, he said again, but this time it was not an excuse, it was an admission. I nodded once, not to comfort him, just to acknowledge it. No, I said. You did not. Rebecca stayed silent beside him.